All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I know the 12 o'clock hour is precious, so I want to go ahead and get started. My name is Adeline Padlina, and I am the new Specialty Courts Grants Coordinator. So it's nice to see all of you. For a lot of us, it'll be the first time I've seen your faces. Before we get started, I just want to let you know a couple things. First and foremost, this meeting is being recorded, which is great. So if you need to review it again, we will be sending out the link. So you'll be able to watch this exciting and enthusiastic performance yet again if you need to. In the meantime, please, 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 by all means, ask questions as we go. If you don't want to use your voice, you can also use the chat. And good news, my colleague who you're all familiar with, Rachel, is on here as well. And she will be presenting a couple slides too, and then also will be there to help me answer questions and make sure that we don't give you any wrong information. So yeah, we're going to talk about expense reporting sheets, which is very, very exciting. So they're new. And before we get to them, I want to tell you all about the grant reporting timeline. So as you all know, the competitive grant is closed. The agreements are being signed and money will be dispersed to you shortly. So I do want to note right here that the first quarter 1 expense reporting date is coming up soon, October 25th. It's right around the corner. We do know that many of you haven't used any funds yet, and that's totally fine, but please, we still are going to want you to upload a completed sheet is in SM Apply, even if you haven't spent any money. We just want to make sure you know how to do it. Also, we want to point something else out to you. I don't know if anyone can see here on the bottom, you have 2 new quarters. So we now have a quarter 9 and quarter 10. We are, however, going to encourage you to please still look at this as a biennial grant and focus on spending that money through July through June, and then using quarter 9 and quarter 10 to address your closeout and then minimize overlap with the new cycle that will be coming out right around that same time as Q9. Also, real quick, before we get to the actual expense sheets, I just want to note that you will not be able to do a budget adjustment request at the end of quarter 9. So, important stuff. All right. You all should have received your expense sheets by email. If you haven't, definitely let me know. Each workbook or each sheet has 2 sheets. So the first part is going to be an expense tracking sheet. That's going to be where you can update the information on what you have spent and why. The second one is going to be an admin detail sheet, and that is just for you to review. It's the whole document is locked. We're going to update it here at the CJC, and it's so that you can keep an eye on things and how they're going. And when we get to the actual sheets, I'll explain that further. Most of the expense tracking sheet is also locked. Really what you're going to be able to do, we're trying to make it as simple as possible for you, is you're just going to report the amount that is spent. And the hope is that it's a lot easier for you to see how where your money is going, how much you have left for the rest of the biennium, etc. So what you're going to do once you complete it, make sure that everything looks good. You're going to upload it into SM Apply the same way you have been. And then I do want to just make a quick note that this is only for county funds. So you have a different type of reporting for OJD that is going to continue. We're just doing the county funds a little bit differently now. Also, I just want to note that we recognize this is a new process for everyone, us included. And I, as I mentioned, am really new to the CJC, and I've put a lot into these expense sheets. So if you notice any changes that need to be made, please, please, please let me know, and I'll get them fixed as soon as possible. I cannot tell you how much spreadsheets start to look like when you're looking at 52 courts, I believe. So let me know if you noticed anything, and we'll get it fixed as soon as we can. Each quarter, you're going to receive an updated expense tracking sheet that has the information that you had put in the previous time. You're going to fill it in with your next expenditures and then upload it. And then you're going to go back to doing all the great work you do. So when you log into SM Apply, you're going to see that you've already been moved to stage 1. And then there'll be the space to upload your sheet. And again, I just want to stress, if you have any questions with this process, please, please, please let us know. Myself or Rachel or Shelby, who's also on this call, are happy to help you do it. And here's what they look like. So this is going to be the top of the expense sheet. And again, I want to note that we're looking right now at the expense sheet. If you look down here on the left, I can get my exciting little laser pointer. So we're looking at the expense sheet. If you wanted to look over at the admin detail sheet, you just click that. So I want to point out that this right here in Q1 is where you're going to be updating. So that blank space should be open to you. Again, we recognize many of you don't have any expenses to report for Q1. So if you don't have anything, just go ahead and put a 0, and that's fine. And everything should automatically update. I don't like math, so we want Excel to do the math. I wanted this to be good for you as well. So you should be able to put your data into the appropriate quarter, and it should automatically change your total remaining, how much you have left, and everything on the second part of the sheet as well. So this is going to be the bottom of that expense tracking sheet. And I just wanted to bring this up because all of these numbers down here. So if you look closely, this will be the updated amounts to total awarded. So as you input data in, say, Q1, say you're spending a little bit money, that will show up in total spent down here, and we'll take away from, or excuse me, the total remaining right there. It'll also tell you the percentage that you have spent thus far through the biennium. And I do want to make a little note, if you have a category that wasn't given any money, say in this case, they didn't receive any funding for equipment, it will throw this error code right there. Don't panic. That's supposed to be there. That's Excel doing what Excel does. And it won't change your overall totals. Do we have any questions up to this point? I do want to give us a minute. I bet you're all Excel geniuses and you don't need anything. All right. We're going to move on then. So again, we've switched over to our admin detail sheet. And again, you won't be able to add or take away anything from this. This is just for your review and to see kind of where you are, especially with that funding. And then again, when we do a supplemental round, if you get funds for that, it'll show up there as well. And then it will also show us budget adjustments, which Rachel is going to talk about.
Yeah, so you all, I think, are familiar with our previous process of, oh, Kathy, before I go, I just want to make sure this question's answered. I'm assuming it's about a previous one. Yes, the OJD folks will report directly to us. So that process you have nothing to do with, it's just county. So
you made my day. Thank you.
Yes, so that's a separate thing for sure. So some of you all familiar with the previous amendment request process, and it's still going to be relatively the same process in SM Apply. We just kind of have a change in language a little bit. We're trying to make things a little bit more clear. And so you're going to have a space in SM Apply to do this. It is going to be a budget adjustment sheet in SM Apply. And so any sort of minor budget adjustments, moving less than 10% of the award from one category to another is an example. This happens quite often. It doesn't include any new positions or stopping payments or moving money to other categories. This can be reviewed by CJC staff and can be approved by CJC staff as well. So that process, I think you all are familiar with. It's the same process. It just, again, it's a budget adjustment. We're gonna try to use that language moving forward, so there's not a lot of confusion in terms of what it means. So if there is we're gonna call like a major budget adjustment where you're moving more than 10% of the award from one category to another. For example, treatment funds to personnel, drug testing to treatment to drug testing, those kinds of things. As the biennium goes through, sometimes you have to make those adjustments. If it's over 10% of your award, it has to go before the commission for approval. So you should still fill out the same sheet that's available in SM Apply for both of those. And we would flag whether or not it has to go before the commission, and then we would be able to tell you if it's approved or if it's review, if it has to go for review, and when that commission meeting is and when it would be heard. And so just keep in mind, if there is that bigger budget adjustment, there is going to be a longer length of time before that's approved, just because we have to wait for the timing for the commission. And then the last one is a program change. So this one is going to be a little bit different. We've not really used this kind of language in the past, but this one is if you are hiring like a new position, or if you're moving treatment money to personnel to hire a new position. Those are things that because we were so specific in providing you with a budget of what was approved, right? So the entire process is based on feedback from the grant review committee. We provided you all with an approved budget. It's what's on the expense sheet, right? So if there is a change in personnel or something that would be considered a program change, we will also flag that to be reviewed by the commission. Okay, so those two, the major budget adjustment and the program change, are two things that will need to be reviewed by the commission. Also, it will allow us to get an idea of if there is a new position hired halfway through the biennium, we are aware of it. Okay, and so we can flag that on our end. And Adeline, correct me if I'm wrong, but that admin sheet is where you will see that with the notes. You'll be able to track our notes in terms of, so commission approval required, date approved, all of that. You'll be able to see that as those requests are made. So a little bit same process. You're going to do it in the same request sheet in SM Apply every quarter. Just a little bit of a change in language, and we just wanted to be very clear in kind of the differences of those requests. So any questions on that? Okay, Adeline, before I move on, did you want to mention, because I mentioned in between category, do you want to mention the within?
I do. In fact, I was just going to interrupt you. So one thing I forgot to mention was if funds have been approved in a category and you need to maybe move some of that funding, and it's not moving funds between categories like Rachel just talked about. It's not changing anything. It's just a little bit of movement. We definitely don't mind. So for example, if you look right here, we're talking about training and travel. And so this county requested $3,000 for money to attend the NADCP conference, and then another $3,000 for travel. So say plane tickets, but say, I don't know if anyone's tried to get their plane tickets for Thanksgiving yet. They're real expensive. So say you spend $4,000 instead here, but then you only need, $2,000 or less for those funds to go to the actual conference. So you're still spending that $6,000 that's been approved under that 10%, all the things. That's fine. We totally accept it and understand that there's going to be a little bit of movement there.
And that's something that we don't need approval for. You all can make those changes. It's been approved, that amount. It also includes supplies, that kind of stuff. And so we want some freedom of spending within those categories. So for what I just talked about with the budget adjustments, those are when you move funds between categories. Okay, so just there's kind of that delineation. If you're confused as to whether or not you need to notify us, just reach out, especially with these a little bit of differences, whether or not it has to go before the commission. Again, the program change part is a little bit different. And so we want to, you know, if you have questions, if you're doing something, if you're hiring personnel, an example of like, you know, if you decide, if you have a, like a PO and a DA that you're spending and you've got 200,000 total approved for both of those positions. If there is movement in payment among those two positions, that's not considered a program change, right? That's what Adeline was just talking about. If you hire a new PO and it goes into personnel and you're moving funds from treatment, that is considered a program change. So is that clear, the difference between what Adeline just talked about and these budget adjustments? Anybody have any questions? Okay, I gotta hit a thumbs up, so, okay. All right. And then I'm also gonna go over this real fast. This is always the fun part. So we do, in our grant administration guide, we do have a list of things that are considered prohibited for the use of CJC funds. Okay, so they're outlined in section 2.2, and as this is just for the year 2023, the grant administration guide. And just a reminder, this list applies to county funds, which we're talking about today specifically, but it also applies to those county funds that were allocated to OJD. Okay, so CJC funds across the board, whether or not they were allocated to the county or allocated to OJD, that list applies. Okay, so please try to make yourself as familiar as you can with that list. There is a section on the bottom that says generally not approved unless like given written permission or something like that. The reason why we have that is because that list applies to all of our grants. It's not just specialty courts. And so some of our grants are a little unique in terms of what those participants need. And so in general, those things are not allowed unless there's context or there's, you know, we can make exceptions. Those are, if you're unsure, those would be times to reach out to us, to have a conversation, provide some context on those particular things, and then we can give you some guidance. So there are some that are clearly not allowed, and then that list, we allow for a little bit of that gray area with context, because we know that that occurs. So please just be diligent about not making assumptions on those, and if you have questions, reach out to us. I also just want to remind you, especially with these kinds of purchases or the use of funds, is that they are, you know, the use of CJC funds is to achieve those specific grant program goals. And so going back to the very beginning of this grant cycle, this process, you know, you were given a score sheet, you were given feedback and funding that was appropriate to that feedback. And so please keep that in mind, that throughout this biennium, those are things to be working towards and using funds to work towards those goals as we go into, I know it's very early, but as we go into the next grant cycle, those are things that CJC is going to be looking at. So just kind of keep that in mind, particularly with the gray area of unallowables. And then incentives and gift cards. This is always a question that we get, so thought I would just mention this. CJC does not have an issue with the use of gift cards as long as they are not used for an unallowable expense. So for example, food. Okay, that's a big one. So, and I kind of did incentives and gift cards together because I know sometimes they're used at the same time, but a gift card to McDonald's, coffee is food, those things are not allowed. Subway, you cannot purchase gift cards and give them to participants if there's food involved. Okay, so I would just want to make that clear. Gift cards where like gas, you know, a gas gift card is appropriate. There is a section in the grant administration guide, I think it's on page 18, where it gives guidelines on how to manage gift cards and what to do and what records to keep within that program. This is something that with the use of CJC funds is required. So make sure that you're familiar with that process with gift cards and what that entails if you're going to be using them. We would just encourage, and if there's some confusion with gift cards, particularly with the use of them for unallowables, is to just purchase the item rather than giving them the gift card to purchase the item. If you're able to, purchase hygiene products, purchase, whatever you would give them that gift card for. If you yourself can purchase the items and give those out, that's probably a better process. So you don't run into some issues. So, Frank.
Rachel, this is Frank Mundy, Washington County. So when it says that the prohibited use of funds apply to both county funds and county funds allocated to OJD, the specialty court program, does that mean that the flex funds that we assign to this project fall under those rules then?
What do you mean by flex funds?
We afford our drug court program a series of funds, flex funds, that they can use for housing and so on and so forth. I'm not sure exactly if they're using any of that for food. I don't think so, but I was just wanting to be clear that those rules also apply to the funds that our county allocates to the program.
They only apply to CJC funds, county funds that are CJC funds only. So if those funds, if like the flex funds come from a different source, that they have their own rules in terms of what you can use those for.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yep. Yeah. I saw another hand up, but I don't. Kathy, did you have a question?
Actually, my question was exactly the same as Frank's. Okay. Our brains are synced up. So that's why I took my hand down. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's just CJC funds, county CJC funds, and then those county funds that were allocated to OJD is where this applies. So any questions on this, particularly the incentives, the gift card portion, because this also is a little new. We do ask that if you use gift cards on the expense sheet, you specify what gift card was given. So please don't just write gift card. Give us, what it was, if it was Amazon or a gas card or something like that. Please specify so that we can track to the best that we can what's actually being purchased with those gift cards. So, any questions? Okay.
Excellent. So the last thing we want to bring up before we open it up for questions and comment is that we have a new disbursement model versus your reimbursement model that you were receiving before. So now, starting in this biennium, you're going to receive 4 equal payments across the biennium instead of getting reimbursed. So you're still going to be responsible for the same record keeping. And if you need to review that, that is also in the grant agreement. And you're still going to be reporting your spending as well. You'll just have a pot of money to do it from. Excellent. And with that, oh, did I interrupt anyone? I do want to open it up for questions. And if something comes, oh, go ahead, Kathy.
Sorry, it's me again. So
no, that's okay.
The 4 disbursements are based off of our budget that we got from you guys. So you'll just take it divided by 4. Here you go. It's our little savings account that we draw from each quarter and pay ourselves back or whatever. Right. So, okay. I like that.
Yeah. And Kathy, those amounts are in your grant agreement.
Right.
So
okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Julie, go ahead.
Did I hear there before then? Is that what was said? Or
yes.
Okay.
Excellent. I don't see any more questions. So we just, in closing, want to recognize we know this is a new process. I
Adeline,
knew.
sorry,
Oh,
we do have a
good.
question, sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay.
Joelle
I think it
Cherry
was
with the
Joelle.
Washington County. Yeah, hi, Joelle Cherry with the Washington County Juvenile Department. So again, with the disbursement, let's see, if we receive more with our 2 disbursements in this first fiscal year than we actually expended, is there a payback, or do we roll that into the next fiscal year and just kind of keep it going?
Did you hear that, Adeline? I didn't quite catch that.
So I think it was if it is not spent by the end of the year, is it rolled over into the next fiscal year? Is that correct, Joelle? It was a little hard to hear you.
Correct, sorry, is my microphone garbled?
A little bit, but we'll get there.
Yes, that was correct.
So will it be, Rachel, will it be rolled over to the next fiscal year?
Oh, so yeah, so it's your spending and the expectation of funds will be the same as they were with the reimbursement. So we will be tracking how much you're gonna be spending going throughout the biennium, but if you get your first disbursement and you haven't spent it by your second one, that's okay, right? We understand that, spending operates throughout the biennium a little bit differently. And so the goal, again, is to have the money spent at the end of the biennium, kind of across. So we'll be tracking that, but also it can roll over into that second year if you haven't spent all of it for the first 2 disbursements. I think that answered your question.
Yeah, that does.
Okay.
And then if at the end of the biennium, we still haven't expended all that, I don't see that being a problem, but if it is, then we do a payback. Is that correct?
Well, you do have those 2 extra quarters to
Oh, that's
kind
right.
of close out and spend. We don't recommend that you plan for that in terms of spending into those 2 quarters because you will have overlap. But the project period does go until December 31st of
That's
2025.
right.
But you will have Q10 or Q9, Q10, and then Q1, Q2
Okay.
to track for those last 6 months. And so just from like a standpoint of spending money, keep it within the biennium as much as you can.
Okay, perfect. Yes, that answers my questions. Thank you.
Fabulous. Well, we just, again, want to acknowledge that we know that this is a new process, that I'm new. There's all kinds of change coming into specialty courts from the CJC. So if you think of anything or see anything on the expense sheets or anywhere else that doesn't work or that could work better, we definitely welcome feedback, and let us know, because we're happy to make the appropriate updates, because the whole goal of this is to make it easier for everyone, and for you, for us, for everyone. So, and again, I just want to sort of stress that if you have any questions that come up after and you think of something, by all means, please shoot me an email. I know you all have it, but I'm going to put it in the chat anyway, because that extra middle initial trips up people once in a while. So please let us know if you have any questions, any concerns. And with that, I think unless anyone else has last minute questions or concerns, we'll let you go enjoy the rest of your lunch break.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a bunch. Have a great one.
Bye.
Thank you.